Well, welcome to Three Count Commentaries. This is your host, Mongo Slade. So today we're going to talk about blading. So I was on PW Insider and they do Q&A sections, and I just happened to be perusing it, and I see that Dave Shearer, wrestling journalist for PW Insider, he doesn't like blading, and he gives some. There's like two questions that he was asked about the Thunder Rosa and Britt Baker match. And I think that these are pretty good points. So I just want to read them out and I want to talk about it because I know blading is very controversial. Not so much because most older wrestling fans are kind of used to it. But, there are people out there who don't like the concept of blading. And so I figure let's hear him out. Let's hear what his reasoning is for why he doesn't like blading. So on March the 21st, 2021, Dave Shearer posted a Q&A from PW Insider. So the question was, how can any promoter justify having a human being use a razor blade to slice their head in 2021 when everyone watching knows what the wrestler is doing? If someone we care about cuts themselves, we get them help. Why do we accept it when wrestlers do it? So then Dave Shearer responded, I am probably not the one to ask that because I hate whenever someone does it for a few reasons. One, it's barbaric. Two, it could lead to infections or worse. Three, in the old days, many, if not most, fans had no idea that a wrestler was intentionally slicing themselves to bleed in a match. Now, we all know that what is exactly what they are doing, so I just don't think it has any place in the business in 2021. I get that some people like watching others slice themselves and bleed, but for me, it turns me off to the match immediately. If someone legitimately gets busted open, I don't like it, but if it's not intentional, it happens. To knowingly choose to cut yourself, I just don't understand why it's done. And then, there was a follow-up question. What was your take on Thunder Rosa versus Britt Baker? And Dave Shearer responded, I thought they worked super hard, and I would have loved the match if they hadn't bladed. Once Britt started gushing, it totally took me out of the match. As I said above, I hate blading, so that hurt the match a lot for me. And the fact that someone with a medical background would do that to herself is really surprising to me. With that said, it was the best women's match I have seen in AEW. I just wish they didn't use the blood. If I believed in the ridiculous star rating system, the blood would have cost the match 1 star. Wow. That's pretty interesting. That's pretty interesting. But of course, it didn't stop there. He was sent another question about blading. I think this was probably whatever the next one he did, because he did them like back to back. So the question was, in a pre-COVID era, I would have loved the Baker Rosa lights out match, but the pandemic has greatly suppressed my appreciation of intentional blood use in wrestling. The spot where Rosa bit Baker's bleeding forehead was just absolutely revolting, and not in a good shock factor way. I find I would have enjoyed the match a lot more without the blading. I could have also done without Jericho bleeding last week, or Moxley licking Brody Lee's blood in their match not long ago. Knowing what we know about the transmission of bloodborne diseases, and considering we are still in the midst of a pandemic, has it changed your enjoyment of matches and angles involving blood and blading in particular? So, Dave Shearer responded, you must be new to this site because I have been anti-blood for decades now. First, as you said, it could transmit disease. Secondly, think about it. Most cases, someone intentionally slicing themselves in order to bleed in a match. What the fuck? It's disgusting. 3, we are in a pandemic. 4, it just takes away from the matches for me. Baker and Rosa worked their tails off in that match. I would have called it a classic had it not been for the blood, but I found the blood to be disgusting, and that took the match down to very good for me. So from classic to very good, okay. Frankly, I think Tony Khan is being irresponsible allowing it. Every major sports league, including the NFL, where his family owns a team, would not allow people to bleed on their field of play. He shouldn't either, at least not if they do it intentionally. I don't get why a smart guy like Tony Khan is okay with letting people slice themselves open with razor blades. Okay, so let's talk about this subject. All right. All right. So I am 100% in the camp of you should do whatever you want to your own body. If you want to blade, that's on you. So I am 100% on that camp. So if you want to blade, if you're not pressured into blading, you want to blade, do it. A lot of wrestlers want to blade. Vince McMahon has been against blading. Then he's kind of been okay with blading. He's actually did it himself. Do you know WWE is not consistent with this? There was times when there was no blood allowed, and they would say no blood, no blood, and then Brett would go out there and gig himself, and then he'd be like, "Oh, it was a mistake, Vince. It was, he really did it on purpose." And Vince would know it, and then didn't do anything. And then there would be times where Vince would have people gigging all over the show. So there's no consistency there. Like today, in recent years, there's no blood. So what they do is they have Brock ram his forehead, his elbow across your forehead until you bleed. And if it knocks you unconscious and fucks your brain up, then so be it. I think it probably would have been easier if he just would have used a razor blade in that instance. And that's really where I kind of get off on it. It's like in a situation, I would rather you use a razor blade than to use Brock Lesnar's fucking elbow. Okay. Now the reason why I would rather you do that is because you're almost guaranteed a cleaner job, and you could control it better if you use a razor blade. And if you use fucking Brock's elbow, then you're gonna hurt the guy more, right? It's not hurting him as much to just put a little slice in his forehead or on his eyebrow or something like that. It's not hurting him that bad. Brock's fucking gigantic fucking elbow smashing into your head numerous times to get real blood is nuts. Okay, it's just nuts. And we saw how that turned out with what he did to Randy Orton, right? So, but blood does enhance matches. It does. It would be impossible for me to sit here and say that there aren't some matches out there that would have been so much better, that could have went from 8s to 10s if they would have had blood in them. The strategic use of blood is a gold star of wrestling. The strategic use of blood. Today we got people now, they avoid head injuries today, which is can back down some of the blood stuff. But you do still have guys getting hit in the head with bats, even if they're doing the old cover the hand, cover the top of the bat, they still doing stuff like that. There's still people getting DDT'd on chairs and stuff like, getting hit in the head with the stairs. You should bleed if you get hit in the head with some stairs, and I think that it's a lost art, and I actually think it's actually making things worse. Allow me to explain. I think that in a match, you used to be able to just bleed, and it would tell you that you've been in a war, that you've been in a fight. You didn't have to do excess damage to your body because it was like, okay, you're bleeding already. Now there's no blood in WWE. So these guys are going super hard to prove that they're having a tough match, so they're going out there and beating the dog shit out of each other with these kendo sticks and these chairs, and it's just so much. And it's like, it could have been easier. Like we could do this a lot easier, right? There's plenty of cage matches. The Hell in a Cell matches in the Elimination Chamber has not been the same since they banned blood. They absolutely have lost a lot of punch since the blood was banned. And even though I agree with Dave Scherer in theory that it's barbaric for you to gig yourself, it is. But I'm not going to tell people not to do it. I just think that it should be an open decision. Now, Dave Scherer is not talking about just the women, which is a good thing, because that would have been probably the next thing people would have been talking about is, is it a problem just because the women were doing it, or was it a problem, period? He's just saying, hey, as a general rule, we don't think people should be blading. Now, we do have the problem with you talking about blading when you talk about the foreheads. Devon Dudley's forehead, Dusty's forehead. For Christ's sake, the cheese graters and all that type of shit. When you had just had these guys and they just sawing their fucking heads open, that is barbaric. That does look stupid. You do have to ask, why is it that everybody gets the same scars in the same places? You know, like why is it at the middle of everybody's fucking head is where all the scars are? Why has nobody ever got a scar under their eye? Why nobody ever have a scar like on the side of their face? Why is everybody always bleeding from the same fucking part of their body? You know, so that's kind of a bit of an expose on the business. But you're not supposed to be doing blood, you know, that much. Like I'm okay with fake blood, you know. I think that would actually help, you know, to some degree. But see, fake blood is like fake crowd noise. It helps, but you know it's not real. You know, like in movies they use fake blood, nobody cares. In wrestling they use fake blood, people complain. It's like I think that you can use fake blood. You know, just like I think sometimes it's okay to sweeten the crowd. You know, sometimes it's okay to use fake blood. And I think some of these Hell in a Cell matches, some of these Elimination Chamber matches uh, could have been enhanced with some fake blood. Um, of course, you would. I don't know how. Not now that I sit down and I think about it, I don't know how you would do it. Would you do it like like the Rollins thing, where it's like blood capsule in the mouth? Maybe. You know that might actually help. I know everybody prefers everything to be real, but this is wrestling, you know. So I don't know, but I just think that matter of fact, now that I think about it, probably not the best idea with the fake blood, you know. But I do think because it's not going to give you the proper effect. So it's not going to give you the proper effect because what you want the shot. And the shot is, the Stone Cold Steve Austin and the sharpshooter, the Becky Lynch with the broken face, the Britt Baker, devilish grin directly into the camera. You can only really get that from real blood. You can't really get that from Fugazi blood. So while, a blood capsule across the forehead or something like that may help increase the enjoyment of the match for younger people, I think for older people, they'd be like, man, that blood is so fake. It's bullshit and yada, yada, yada. That it probably would take them out of it. But at the same time, they've gone full movie with everything else that it's kind of hard to come up with a good reason why we shouldn't do it outside of it just wouldn't look realistic. And it's like none of this shit looks realistic anyway. So, again, that's also better than using Brock's fucking elbow, fake blood. But I'm okay with them not using fake blood. I'm okay with them not using blood. I'm okay with people not blading. I'm okay with people blading. I think that certain match types have been harmed because there is no blood. And we're not just because we're used to it, but because it should be expected that in a violent fight, people would bleed, So it's not just, well, you were trained that, cage matches involve blood. It's like, no, this is a violent fight. How many times have you been in a violent fight and nothing happened? Like sometimes you might punch a guy out and, he got got a nice little swell on his eye or something like that. But you almost never walk out of a fight completely unharmed, not if it's a good one anyway, so it's kind of, and plus when you see boxing, you see UFC, these guys are punching each other in the head and in the face. You expect blood, and this is probably why you shouldn't have closed fists, but that's a different argument. So you see how all this stuff seems to string together, that, you don't use closed fists because then you don't expose the business when people aren't bleeding, or not bruised. Then you could say, oh yeah, no closed fists. WWE just gave up on that whole no closed fist thing. Nobody cares. So, these things kind of run together, it does affect the match types. And then you have to make the choice of whether you want real blood and you want to manufacture real blood, like using Brock's elbow, try to create some type of hard way, or you want a blade, which is easier to control, but it is, somewhat barbaric. And in some places, blood is banned. Gigging is banned. That's how AEW got jammed up in, I believe it was Maryland during the first Kenny Omega John Moxley match, and they got that censure from the athletic commission. So, it is what it is. I'm okay with blading as far as, people want to do what they want to do, but I could do without it too. But I'm on the fence about fake blood. It depends on how you do it. Just like I'm on the fence about crowd sweetening. It depends on how you do it. There's a lot of little magic tricks into wrestling where if you could get fake blood and I don't notice it, great. If you can blade and I don't notice it, okay, cool. But people who just pulling a katana across their fucking forehead in the middle of the hard cam, that's completely different. But I'm not going to say that certain matches are not, harmed due to lack of blood. But let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. Like this video, share this video, subscribe to the channel. Use the hashtag threecountcommentaries to support the channel. Thank you guys for your time, and I will talk to you guys later. Peace out.